So UFC 241 just got released, and there's a lot of things that are now kind of clear from seeing the matchups on this card. First off, 3 title fights, 1 card. We're once again stacking another pay-per-view, which I thought that they'd be trying to push out events as fast as they possibly could, and they'd want to spread out their contests a little bit more, but looks like they're really heavy stacking this pay-per-view in hopes that it just draws a lot of numbers and brings in a lot of buys, which is also strange considering it's headlined by Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. Now this is the matchup that speaks the most to me, and the reason why is because it shows us where we're at with other matchups. So now that it's official, or supposedly official, that Kamaru Usman's fighting Gilbert Burns, we now know that Jorge Masvidal is a free agent. He now has nobody to sign with in terms of who he's going to be competing against next, which throws a wrench into everything. Now that Jorge isn't fighting Kamaru Usman, now it's still a possibility that Conor McGregor stays at 170. You know, when Jorge was supposed to be fighting Kamaru Usman for the title, there were talks that, you know, Conor McGregor, there's really nothing for him at 170. Now 176.7 or whatever it was, we have Anderson Silva. But at 170 in particular, we didn't have anybody. Now that Jorge is a free agent and no longer has anybody to compete against, doesn't have a name on his bill, a name and face in his sights, that's that Conor McGregor can slip right in there. You go ahead and say, oh yeah, Conor McGregor, he's retired, he's this. No, he's not. Conor McGregor loves comeback fights, and you can't have a comeback fight unless you leave. So now that Jorge Masvidal is in the mix, who's Jorge gonna fight? Now there's a possibility of him fighting either Leon Edwards or Colby Covington, and those are the 2 matchups that make most sense to me that don't really affect anybody else. So if Jorge decides to fight Nate Diaz for a second time, that messes up Conor McGregor, because Nate Diaz is always a possible option for Conor McGregor to fight 55, 65, 70. Doesn't matter. That's always an option out there. So if Jorge goes and says to fight Nate, that throws in the mix with Conor. Now Conor has to wait for something else. You know, I said that Conor McGregor's retirement came as a result of Dana White telling Conor McGregor to wait, to sit out for a title shot. And Conor's saying, well, if I'm going to sit out, I might as well retire so I can have yet again another comeback fight. You can't come back to something that you haven't left. But I also thought that it was a possibility of Conor McGregor to maybe fight Nate Diaz for a 3rd time. You know, Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz can both go on 2-3 fight losing streaks, and that trilogy fight between the 2 of them will still have value. So I don't foresee the UFC, ESPN, whomever, deciding to make that contest any more prematurely than they need to. Jorge Masvidal goes and fights Colby Covington or Leon Edwards. Once again, just another fight within that 170-pound rank. But let's not forget that Jorge and Conor are still on the table. Now, I understand the UFC has their cash cows. They just have the people that are a little bit better known in the media with the casual fan. Jorge and Conor McGregor are both those people. So the question is if they fight, if Jorge beats Conor, does Conor lose stock? Because if Conor loses stock, then they're not going to... If Conor McGregor loses stock, then that's, of course, a fight that they're not going to want to make. Jorge Masvidal for sure loses all of his stock if he loses to Conor McGregor, a previous 145-pounder. He loses all of his stock. But does Conor lose any stock if he loses to Jorge? Because those were the talks, right? That Conor McGregor versus Anderson Silva makes perfect sense, because if Conor loses to Anderson, he's not going to really lose any push or momentum, because it's Anderson Silva. The man fought at light heavyweight. A featherweight fighting an ex-featherweight fighting an ex-light heavyweight. You can chalk it up to just size at the end of the day. Now, I think that still plays an effect, it still plays into account with Conor versus Jorge, but I don't think as much. I think that there's still competitiveness there between the 2 in terms of on paper. And I think that Conor McGregor versus Anderson Silva is a competitive fight as well. But just due to the size factor, the name factor, and who those individuals are, I don't believe that Conor McGregor loses too much losing to Anderson. I do believe he loses a little bit losing to Jorge Masvidal. So then where do we go from here? We got Jorge's possible matchups, Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor possible matchups. Maybe step in for Khabib, Gaethje, but I doubt it. So who else is really at 155 that he can fight? Something I haven't heard anybody speaking about is always the Dustin Poirier rematch. That is interesting. At 155 pounds, that contest is very interesting. At 170, there's nobody for Conor to fight outside of Nate Diaz, Jorge Masvidal, or the champ himself. So let's kind of scratch that. But I would say definitely at 155 now, the only matchup I can see outside of Conor waiting for a title shot is going to be that Dustin Poirier fight. We also have Max and Volkanovski fighting it out for a 145-pound belt. I mean, I guess if Volkanovski wins or Max Holloway wins, I guess we have the Henry Cejudo option. Wouldn't that be ridiculous? A 125-pounder moving up and winning the belt at 145. That would be the equivalent of Kamaru Usman losing to Conor McGregor and Conor McGregor capturing the 170-pound belt, which is all but a pipe dream to me. And not even a dream, all of just a circumstance conjured up by the pipe. And we have Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo. Now this is another one of those fights to see where do we go into the division, because Peter Yan coming off a win at Uriah Faber, Jose Aldo coming off a loss to Marlon Moraes. This should be Marlon in there, especially consider we're not going to see a rematch between Marlon and Cejudo. That should be Marlon versus Yan for the belt, or Marlon versus Aljo rather. Now, I am one of the people that says that Jose Aldo did win that contest versus Marlon Moraes. I never went back and rewatched it. I watched it the one time. I made my decision. I never revisited it again. But that was my initial thoughts, and I'm sticking to them until somebody challenges me enough to make me go change my mind. But something that people aren't thinking of as well in that division is what's Sean O'Malley going to do? What's Cody Garbrandt going to do? You know, let's put Sean O'Malley in there against Cody Garbrandt. Let's put Sean in there against Corey Sandhagen. Look, let's not push Sean just yet. Let's wait a little bit on Sean. I've already had this opinion. I've already made a video about this. Let's wait on Sean O'Malley. Cody Garbrandt, put him up there against the top of the top. Let's get Cody Garbrandt. Let's get Cody Garbrandt back in there with title contention. He's paid his dues. He's put his time in. Let's put Cody Garbrandt back up there. But something that nobody's thinking about, that nobody's wondering. Nobody has brought this up. Let's not forget that TJ Dillashaw is coming back into this division. Let's also not forget that TJ Dillashaw does not need a full training camp after he is off suspension. TJ is eligible to compete the day his suspension is done, so they can put a card together and have TJ, I believe, scheduled to fight on a card a day after his suspension's up. Now, would Cody Garbrandt versus TJ Dillashaw 3 work? I mean, would Cody Garbrandt losing TJ Dillashaw 3 times work? I don't know. The only way I can see those two fighting again is if they really, really get some hype together and some beef, some drama again, or if one of them captures the belt and then decides that, and then the other one then makes their way up title contention and forces it that they are the next heir to the throne. It's an exciting time in mixed martial arts right now. Without COVID, all the divisions right now have me asking the question, what the hell are we going to do next? What is next with these divisions? And UFC 251 shed a little bit of light on what we have at least. And it didn't even shed light, actually. It just closed the darkness up a little bit more. We were a little bit definitive prior. Now that Jorge Masvidal's not fighting, a whole wrench was just thrown in the game. Nickel Combat Sports World official partner of Fight Club, reminding you So stay combative, my friends.